So I went to pay some bills at one of those, what you call them, agencies or so on. And there I met an individual. He said his name was Joel Davidson. He said he was a former soldier, GDF soldier. And he was a paratrooper. And that during one of the jumps, something went wrong. And long and short is that he's permanently disabled. This man who had been injured as part of his duty is being given the royal runaround to get benefits. Why should that be? Why should that be? It was President Ali in his Republic address at Parliament building, I'll come back to that, who singled out the service of the GDF, the soldiers, the men and women in uniform. He singled them out for praise.
Manners and respect to Mr. Winston Jordan. You is a great man to the Guyanese citizen. As a minister to the South America land, called Guyana. So much negative, so much propaganda. The PPP are trying to tell upon you, but keep speaking the truth. The truth is always there forever. The best finance minister I ever seen in Guyana. Oh yeah, Lord, please guide and protect him each and every day. He is full of knowledge and experience and things that going on in this country. Jordan is a cool and humble man. He educate and dedicate to the society. Over 30 years he give to we in this ministry. Yeah, yeah. Jordan is for all. Lord, no, you will always stand tall. Tall. Yeah. Oh yeah. I am a Guyanese citizen. I never meet you and I never talk to you, but for you good works you have done for this country. I'm singing this song to you, Mr. Winston Jordan. We as Guyanese citizens saying we love you. Yes, we love you. Lord, let no weapon that come against him shall prosper. Lord, you is the God from heaven. You is the God from heaven. Oh, manners and respect to Mr. Winston Jordan. Guyanese, we love you, Winston Jordan. Yeah, yeah.
Reference something. Yesterday, I went to pay some bills. You got to pay bills, otherwise you'll be cut off or you will be given them a reason to discontinue your service. So I went to pay some bills at one of those, what you call them, agencies or so on. And there I met an individual. He said his name was Joel Davidson. He said he was a former soldier, GDF soldier. And he was a paratrooper. And that during one of the jumps, something went wrong. And long and short is that he's permanently disabled. Permanently disabled. And so, of course, his whole earning capacity has been diminished. I think more than the earning capacity, what he was passionate about when he was telling me his story was the lack of concern and the treatment that he has got so far. And of course, that treatment is not one that lends itself, if what he's saying is true, and I have no doubt in believing what he told me, it doesn't lend itself to people joining the army and generally the security forces, if this is going to be how they are going to be treated, if for whatever reason they can't continue. And in some ways, it reminds me of many of the stories I've seen about veterans in the United States and their treatment. And even when some of them have not been injured and they still have good use of life and limb, some of them suffer from all kinds of, all kinds of diseases, particularly mental and so on. And they can't turn easily anywhere to get the kind of help that they should get. And even their benefits that they're supposed to get, many of them are denied some of these benefits. But back to Mr. Davidson. So Mr. Davidson has turned left, right, and center, looking for assistance to attenuate his present circumstance, right? As I said, is permanently disabled. And what he has got so far, he's been recognized as permanently disabled, and he's been given this book, right? The disability book that every month he can go and collect disability. Well, you know how much money they pay for disability. Disability, I believe, is the same as public assistance. And that's somewhere in the region of about $25,000 or something a month. He also said that they placed him, I think, at Guyana Water Inc., where his gross salary is $119,000. $119,000 is his gross salary. So $119,000 together with his $25,000. Well, let me pull back. 119 out of that 119,000, if it's gross, then he will still have to pay NIS. He'll have to pay NIS because he's not 60 yet. So let us say he takes home argument's sake, 115,000. And then because he will not pay income tax, he will be under the threshold. And let us say he gets to 25,000 for public assistance. So his net take home is 140,000. 140,000 a month. That he has to meet all these different expenses of himself and his dependents. He doesn't have a home that he can doesn't have a place that he could call home in terms of owning it. So either he's living with somebody, he's renting or something. He said he approached housing for assistance. And after a long time, after a very long time, he was offered land at $1.2 million. He's offered a plot of land at $1.2 million. He said after making a lot of noise and so on, they tell him to pay $550,000. But still he can't make it. Still, he can't make $50,000. Here is a man who served. It was President Ali in his Republic address at Parliament Building, I'll come back to that, who singled out the service of the GDF, the soldiers, the men and women in uniform. He singled them out for praise. But that is what he's good at. This man who had been injured as part of his duty is being given the royal runaround to get benefits. Why should that be? Why should that be? Why should that be? Another set who died in 2024, I believe, December, was it 2024 when they died, were suddenly named heroes without an investigation. They were immediately named heroes without an investigation. But when that investigation was completed, they then tell you they can't make it public. So we are still in the dark as to what was the basis of these people being named heroes. So some people apparently are treated differently than others. This man is permanently disabled. He still seems to be a relatively young person. But he's getting the royal runaround. Men on mission get over $1 billion, or how much $1 billion, to do what only the good Lord in heaven knows. But he can't get a house built for him because he doesn't have any means of meeting all of this money that they're being asked for. What is the sense telling these people, butter them up, our soldiers, men and women in uniform, the ones who are at the borders and facing all kinds of adversities, and their families who they leave behind, and their children who grow up sometimes without seeing their father or their mother because they are placed at the border, and some of them are forgotten down there. And we've seen some of the food and whatever else they have to endure. We don't treat these people with this respect that they have. And these who run around and trying to praise them and butter them up. When we had the little skirmish in Venezuela not so long ago, when people, our own citizens, were running away because they weren't getting enough information and they weren't seeing the Politburo, the members of the Politburo. All they saw at that time were brave soldiers who were there, and Travis Chase and Sherrod Duncan, who defied the odds and went into what could have been hostile territory. Members of the Politburo had hightailed it to Dubai. When we told those members of the security forces that when they pay you a 1-month bonus every year and you jump in for joy, when they pay you, you're not thinking long term, because you are taking a short term thank you and selling out your long-term sustainability. A 1-month bonus must not be in lieu of a package of benefits and assistance befitting our men and women in uniform, especially those in the GDF. It must not be in lieu, it must be part of the package. But what you are getting is in lieu. When you get injured on the job, this is what you are likely to go through. You get people visiting you in hospital, shaking hands and taking out photographs. But that is all you get. Meanwhile, you and your family got an extended period of suffering, economically, financially, emotionally, and everything else. When we talked about the package that we had in store for our men and women in the discipline services, many of you didn't listen. You allowed yourself to be carried away by those who are telling you otherwise. You allowed yourself to get big-eyed with the 1-month bonus. And now you're realizing bonus don't add to your salary. Bonus don't add to your pension. Bonus don't add to your retirement benefits. It is discretionary and given at the instance of the government. But you are getting permanent income, permanent allowances, and benefits that go towards your longevity. But you allowed yourself to be persuaded by 1-month bonus. I hope this is part of your awakening. Because he was just, I believe, a private or somewhere around that rank to show how the salaries and the benefits that they are getting are minuscule. You all remember the case just now. I gotta take this call, sorry. Hello? Hello? Not too bad, not too bad. I didn't know the program, quick. Hello? No, but tell me quick. Is it? Oh. Okay, let me talk now. Anyway. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah. Y'all remember the story, the case, where an officer of the GDF was moonlighting to wit running a private hire taxi to get additional income because the income that he was getting was insufficient. And he was a GDF officer. I think he was a captain or a lieutenant or something like that. And he had to be running private hire, which is against the laws, you know, because you have to have a hire car to run hire. But private hire he was running. No insurance will give you private hire. So he was taking a chance. And guess what? He also took a chance with his life. And he was robbed in North Rhineville and killed. Y'all remember that story? Y'all remember more recent incident of soldiers being caught with marijuana, cocaine, and all these different illegal substances. Some of them are just roguish, but others are genuinely looking for ways to supplement their income because what they are getting is insufficient, really, really insufficient. And this doesn't, as you well know, only happens to those who are sovereign in uniform. It's not only them. It happens to all and sundry. This is one activity that is not discriminatory. You have, only yesterday, I was reading a letter in Starbuck News. The letter was headlined, "Many young adults continue to face significant financial pressure." And this is part of the letter. It says, despite Guyana's rapid economic expansion, many young adults continue to face significant financial pressure. For much of the Generation Z, the central concern is affordability, whether their income can realistically cover basic expenses while allowing them to build assets such as a home. A survey conducted in December 2025 that this person saw underscored this reality. They said, although inflation had slowed, food, utilities, and housing-related costs remain high relative to wages. For lower and middle-income earners, this gap is widening, making home ownership increasingly difficult compared to a generation ago. A generation ago, a generation is 30 years. This is 2026. So you're talking about 1996, right through. It was easier to own a home than in this thriving Dubai, highest growth rate economy. This person talked about the experience of Kati K, a real person, a 28-year-old public servant. She holds a master's degree and works full-time in the public service. To supplement her income, she operates a small shop from her mother's home in Sophia. Several years ago, she was allocated a government house lot and exhausted her savings to pay for it. Today, she is trying to accumulate approximately $800,000 needed for basic landfilling and preparation before construction can even begin. Her net monthly income is about $140,000, about the same as Mr. Joel Davidson, $140,000. From this, imagine she got a master's degree. She has a master's degree, and her take-home pay is $140,000. And she has a master's degree. Mr. Joel Davidson didn't strike me as somebody who had any fantastic education, but around with his 119,000 and so on, he gets about $105,000 as I said. So from this Kati K's $140,000, she covers transportation, contributes to household expenses because her mother is unemployed. She pays $15,000 monthly on a modest used car loan and manages electricity bills exceeding $18,000 per month. After these obligations, among other vital living expenses, little remains for savings. She told us that taking on a mortgage feels risky, as default could mean losing the land she worked so hard to secure. Kati had hoped that the announced electricity reductions and cash grants made by President Ali on the elections will ease some of the pressure. With those expectations unmet, her timeline for building even a modest home has been pushed further into the future. She often finds herself recalculating her budget at night, trying to determine how long it will realistically take to begin construction. Her situation is not unique. The findings from the survey indicate that 47% of the Gen Z respondents have completed university, yet youth unemployment remains high, and many believe upward mobility opportunities are limited outside specialized sectors. Housing costs continue to rise, and the age of first-time home ownership has shifted from an average age of 31 years a decade ago, right? A decade ago would have carried us to 2016 under the coalition government, right? When home ownership on average 31 years, you'll be able to acquire a home. And this has shifted now to 44 years today for many young professionals in the highest Dubai state, highest growth rate, biggest budget, and everything else. Perhaps most concerning, 64% of respondents express skepticism that oil will meaningfully improve their personal circumstances. There's a growing perception that national growth is not translating into broad-based personal economic advancement. One respondent asked me rhetorically if she needs to start selling chocolates as a side job to build her first modest home. And it concludes, economic growth figures and record budgets cannot alone define success. True progress will be measured by whether educated, hard-working young citizens like Kati can realistically achieve stability, financial independence, and home ownership in the country they call home. And yet again, we had the biggest budget ever. But for whom? Certainly not for the likes of Kati K, and may I add, for Joel Davidson. This is the situation facing 58% and more of those recognized by international agencies as being poor in this country. And the poor is not discriminatory, is not only the likes of the Joel Davidson pensioners, a lot of whom are the NIS pensioners, old age pensioners, and so on. But it's for the so-called middle class or lower middle class defined by profession. They tell you go and get degrees. Many people have education opportunities and they're expanding their range. So some people got 2 first degrees, a master's degree, and catching hell to find jobs. Catching hell to find jobs. Many of these people are among the unemployed poor or even the employed poor, because many of them are taking jobs inconsistent with their qualifications, but they have to earn something. It is not an aberration to meet a person driving a minibus or conducting a minibus or such similar low, I don't want to use low class, but in that category, and as you discourse with them, you find out that they actually have a degree. And when you ask them why they're doing that, they say 2 things. One, they can't find a job consistent with their qualifications. Or 2, if they find such a job, it doesn't pay much. It doesn't pay much. And I don't want to sound or come off as being racist or whatever. Nobody has ever called me that, and I don't want it to be thing. But I would like a study or a survey to be done about those who have taken up the opportunities, whether under the gold scholarship, which I absolutely don't recognize, or any other such, went to University of Guyana, whatever. and do a survey to find out whether they have been employed after they would have secured their qualifications. I tell you, I said this because I happen to speak to several persons, 90-something% of whom happen to be Guyanese of African descent. And almost on all of them, the experience has been the same. They've sent out letters, they've talked to these people, they've met this person, and they are still unemployed. Unemployed. They're still unemployed. And when you go to a number of these agencies, especially some of the private sector agencies, you tell yourself you got no hope, no chance of getting employment in that organization. No chance, or very little chance of getting employment there. Notwithstanding the fact that you might be the best, you might be the brightest, and so on. And that is not only limited to the private sector. The public sector, the government sector, is not without its own accusations of discrimination, particularly among members of Guyanese of African descent. I want you to go around and take a look at all those ministries and see the changing faces. And I'm asking you see, the Ethnic Relation Commission waiting for somebody to complain before they are doing an investigation. But that is not the role of only the role of an Ethnic Relation Commission. You don't see the organization in America waiting for somebody just to complain to do an investigation. The Ethnic Commission should go around these agencies. Take a look at their employment practices. A lot of people, they are being slotted in at lower, middle, and upper level. No advertisement, no anything. No advertisement, no anything. And the teachers had a fight on their hand. And I'm happy that Coretta has started it. You wake up overnight and they change the criteria. You think they change the criteria with you in mind? Huh? Who has been teaching for all those years? Tell me, who had joined that profession and been teaching for all those years? When you switch from 1 point per year or how much to 1 point for every 5 years, who you think it's gonna be affecting? They got a fight on their hands. They got a fight on their hands. All the top positions, they're not advertised. People are slotted in. I'm sorry if I think off, but I was reading where they had some guy who claimed that he worked at Guyanese. And so it had this running commentary about Mr. Man's salary. What is it? Ramsurup. No, it's Ramsurup. You name? Yeah. And a salary that was disclosed in Parliament, and so. And then the discussion continued that, he got that job by just slotting in. He never competed for the job. And this guy who said he worked at Go Invest before claimed that everybody else had been done. This had been done. Well, you could see how some of these people are really, I don't know. The guy who was there under the coalition government, he wasn't slotted in. There was the advertisement and the whole recruitment was done by a private, well-known law accounting firm. They did the recruitment, they did the advertising and everything else. And that's why I tell you, some of them, it's Facebook and all them who got all these people who just come out of the woodwork and so on. But you can go and check. The recruitment for the Go Invest CEO under the coalition government was contracted to a well-known accounting firm. They did the recruitment. They did the thing. They interviewed the people and so on. It had nothing to do with the coalition government. And this guy came out of it. He wasn't plucked from nowhere and put there. But everybody under the PPP from the time they came back in 1992 who went to Go Invest were plucked out and put there. As I said last week or before last, the present Commissioner General wasn't plucked out and put there. He was there after a advert went out internationally, regionally, locally. And he was the best of them all that came through. A real interview of different people, not the one I went through. As an aside, let me give this one quickly. So, my contract when I was there at ministry was coming to an end. I've been there for a while and I figured that they're gonna get rid of me eventually. So they were about to activate the Guyana Revenue Authority, and the World Bank had put up 3 years of money for the Commissioner General. And good money too, because they wanted to attract the best out of in terms of the world. So they typical of World Bank, when they're financing you, you have to advertise internationally and so on. They did, but apparently only locals applied for the work. So I made an application for the Commissioner General job. And as I said, at the time, I was consultant budget advisor in the Ministry of Finance. But I figured every year they were getting difficulty finding more and more money because I was being paid in foreign currency. So they had to find, either a new loan or something else and so on. And that was becoming more and more difficult. So I said, man, I'm looking for something more permanent. And I applied for this Commissioner General work. The interviews were being held, guess where? At the office of the President. So I went through the gate, the security gate at the office of the President. And while about to enter the building, I met my good friend, Jennifer Webster. Jennifer Webster. I think she was the prominent secretary at the time. And so we stopped and we gaffed a little bit. And then she said, Winston, what are you doing here? Like, you're going to a meeting or something? I said, yes, I'm going to they have interviews for the Commissioner General. And I'm going to She said, why are you there here? You're wasting your time. I said, why? She said, man, the workers are already being given out. I said, her, to who? She said, man, to your boy. I said, to who? She said, to Cecil Regina. I said, Cecil Regina? Cecil Regina is going to be Commissioner General? What Cecil Regina know about taxation and fiscal policy and so on? She said, but you know, but he has been promised the job. I said, okay, is he upstairs? She said, no, his interview will be done via telephone because he's overseas. Well, I sucked my teeth. I said, So they just calling me here just for number. They don't give out the work already. So I went upstairs and about to seat myself when I saw, guess who? I saw Khurshid Cesar. So I said, Khurshid, what are you doing here? Harry, what are you doing here? I said, I come for the interview for the Commissioner General work. He said, really? He said, man, they promised me the work. He said, Rob Street, he said, Freedom House promised you the work. But he just got to go through the motions because it's World Bank financing and they have to prepare a report for the World Bank. I said, well, what story is this? What story is this? So I turned up like a good fool just to make up number, but the work had already been given out, right? The long and short, guess what? Khurshid Sattar was named the Commissioner General. And so obviously they had a nice report prepared, or they had these people and they interviewed them, and Khurshid Sattar was thing. They only had 2 interviewers. One, a Ghanaian who's probably back here. I heard he's back here. And one who's a minister today. Them were the 2 interviewers. I tell you, look. But anyway, I thought I said, since it's near close, it's close to what we were discussing. But this is what we face in this country. Mr. Joel Davidson is part of the employed or unemployed poor who's suffering mightily. And yet we just presented a $1.558 trillion budget. And it is right that it's supposed to be putting people first. But Mr. Joel Davidson doesn't think so. He doesn't have the means or wherewithal to ever be able to build a house. But yet he served this country, is now incapacitated, and he's dashed one side. I warned Mr. Davidson, though. I said, listen, do you really want me to put your story out there? Because they may come after you. And whatever little that you get in might disappear. He says he didn't care no more because he had it. Whatever happened, happened. That was his thing. So I said, okay, all right. But this is the things that make you really sad being a part of this country. That we got all this money and you got all this suffering that is going on among those who suffer anyhow, like the unemployed, the poor, the disabled, the incapacitated and all this. But even those who want to get out of their poverty, like the Kati K, a girl with a master's degree, working in a job in the public sector that pays her money, that will never, ever would she be able to build a simple fowl coop. Yet we say we put in people first. So I thought I would put that out there because that story that he gave me really touched me. And if anything could come out of it, I hope the man and generally the people in the discipline services can begin to get the respect other than praise. A lot of it that sound more self-righteous than genuine. They cannot eat praise during and after. It must be seen intangible. One of the things that has to be done But while they are serving, many of you would not spend, many of them in the Politburo would not spend 1 hour at the border with Venezuela or in Guyana. They arrive with a chopper, shake hands and thing, and they jump back in the chopper and they're gone. But spare a thought, go there and spend 1 night or 2 nights with those people. Much less some of them who are out there for months and years without seeing their families. Little communication, little ration getting in, no proper food. It is time we go beyond the rhetoric. It's time the government goes beyond the rhetoric and build an army and a police force and a prison and a fire, but especially the army that we should be proud of. Proud in the sense of them being recognized both in terms of the remuneration you give them, the benefits, and the afterlife. And the Mr. Joel Davidsons must be taken care of. Because if people know that when they become incapacitated, this is what they will get, and this is how they will be treated, they will better serve. They will devote themselves to the cause and to the mission. But if they know, if others who are looking on, look at Mr. Davidson, who to no fault of his, in the parachute jump, he end up at all parachute jumps anyhow, something could go wrong, you end up incapacitated. Your neck get break or your spine get something or something. And we have to treat these people not in this manner, where this man, as soon as he saw me, said, Mr. Jordan, come, I need to tell you my story. And I'm sure they have more like him. But anyhow, so Mr. Davidson, I did exactly what you asked me to do. And I hope the authorities will do something for you. Men on mission, take a little raise out of the $1 billion and build a house for the man. Build a little 2-bedroom house for the man. Instead of wasting money running around all around the place. Y'all got a lot of houses locked up. Central Housing Plant, I got a lot of houses locked up. Y'all got housing you're giving to Venezuelan and squatters all over the place, but here's a man who served his country, injured in the performance of his duties, and you got him running around all around the place, looking like he thinking of hand to mouth. The man wants to be able, and by the way, before I end, poor Mr. Davidson now is so worried that they're now trying to transfer him from the Georgetown, one of the Georgetown offices of the Guyana Water Inc., to Cummins Lodge, the new water treatment plant that they just opened. He's very, very upset. But what can he do? If he don't take it, he lose the work or whatever, and they're done with it. For good now. But anyway, that's that. My reflections on the Republic and Mashramani. So, we had our 56th anniversary celebrations, and in a word and in a summary, I say it is lucky that we have Guyanese who like their homeland. And so regardless of whatever and how we're going, they will return in their numbers to be a part of whatever we call celebration. And so I've been seeing on Facebook and met a number of Guyanese who haven't come back home for a while. They're here. And their impressions, of course, extremely mixed. Some of them sad at what they saw. Some of them indifferent. And some of them, well, they didn't see anything because they just wanted to blend and mix with family and friends and play catch up. But leading up to the Republic Day celebration were these drab, dry, dreary performances in calypso, soca. I don't even remember if I saw anything to do with chutney. Some nonsense about dancehall. I think we're losing it. I think we're losing it. The art form where the artists should be given free rein, subject only to decency and libel. That art form in Guyana is dying. Dying. Now you got what are called government artists. That is a phrase most recently coined by Odessa Primus. Government artists who either take it upon themselves or are instructed to sing only good things about the government. And you will be rewarded with a place. And so you have these mundane, monotonous, no artistry, singing and performances. And you can see the government artists in the winners. And how will that help to promote the Guyanese culture? How will that help to promote the Guyanese culture? I mean, you don't have to be an old timer to figure out that back in the day, we had calypsonians that talk about Bornham being a this and Bornham being a that. But the calyp and height. But the calypsos that emerged from those so-called tyrants had far more into it than this crap we are hearing today. And the artistry, look, can we get Sparrow to come here, because he seems to have it still, to come here and teach these people how to write calypsos? What happened to the double entendre and all this kind of story? One kind of thing. Praise Ali, praise Jack Dio, praise this, praise the government, praise one Guyana, one set of crap. There's no mastery, there's no artistry. None. And I don't know who tells some of them that they can sing. What happened? When are we going to produce the likes of a Mighty Smoker, the Mighty Rebel, Sweet Kendingo, Lord Canary, Winfield James, among stalwarts who kept our flag flying? I don't know where these are going. But as Odessa Primus say, we got too many government artists. And so they restrict their craft they restrict their craft. And once you got to restrict your craft, that craft will die soon, sooner than later. And you know what is happening too? This thing, this disease seems to be spreading. I heard a superb calypso coming out of Trinidad. And I think Kadaki, you played it on here. I can't remember, but I know definitely David Hines played it. The calypsonian, a woman, talked about Africans for sale in the Trinidad and Tobago elections last year. Africans for sale. And she talked about how UNC were able to buy African votes. And for that, she was booted out of the Calypso tent. She was booted out. So this thing is spreading, like I said. Once it's not libel, once it's not vulgar and obscene, then the calypsonian and the soca artists and them must be able to have free reign. Must be able to have free reign. And who vex, lose. And because opportunities among the artists in Guyana are limited, very limited, some of them, or many of them, have now resigned themselves to the fate that if I can stay in Guyana, then I'm got to toe the line. And so many of them now that you used to look up to have now begun to toe the line in order to get spotted, in order to get favored. Where would this lead us? Are we on the road to North Korea too? Is that what we want in this country? Then you have, of course, the Republic flag raising. No. As we old timers know, flag raising was a mighty and major event as part of the celebrations. Flag raising was usually held at the national park, and nary a seat was available. It was always packed and sold out, even though it didn't pay a cent, but it was always packed. People came from all over the place. East Coast, West Coast, Essequibo, Linden, different parts of Georgetown, all excited to be a part of that celebration. And nothing like when the GDF are resplendent in their tunic and ceremonial uniform and precision marching and saluting and so on. A sight to behold, a joy. And the proudness of the golden arrowhead being raised in symbolic remembrance of us becoming a republic on the 23rd of February, 1970. And for those, by the way, who think that republic is a black people thing, as in black Guyanese thing, and it was meant to celebrate Forbes Barnum's birthday, who happened to be born on the 20th of February, before Republic, but long after the event that caused the 23rd of February to be the date. Because the 23rd of February reminds us of the first blow for freedom from slavery and whatever else, because it was on the 23rd of February 1763 at Plantation Magdalenenburg that the first blow for freedom in this country was struck. 23rd of February 1763. Take that and smoke it in your pipe. Got nothing to do. And by the way, as Aubrey had been able to state as recent as last night, it was Cherry Jagon who, in his discourse with Barnum, because them two were friends, don't worry about all this big fighting thing, they were friends, who in his discourse with Barnum advised that the date 23rd of February 1763 should be immortalized. And some way and some event must be found for us to keep it in our current and future memory, rather than it being distant history. It was Cherry Jagon who told Barnum that, and Barnum hit upon that as the date on which we would put Republic. This is quite unlike 26th of May 1966, that has no significance in terms of history in this country. In fact, the 26th of May 1966 was a convenient date for the Crown and the Queen about when they would have been available to do the ceremony. It had nothing. 26th of May 1966 has nothing in the history of this country that you could point to. Unlike the 23rd of February 1763 and the 23rd of February 1970. So when the go wrong, when ignorance is not only known to the unlettered, you had no other than the legs of the Reverend Dale Bisnat, who was Minister of Education, who disdained Republic celebrations. Yes. And he had a fight on his hand. And happily at the time we had a opposition leader who was going to fight them toe to toe. Desmond Hite. Because when he tried to de-emphasize Mashramani and Republic celebrations under a Cherry Jagon government, 1992, it was Hite who led the charge. It was Hite who led the charge. Y'all remember when the PNC had long numbers on the Republic Day? And as soon as we reached the turnoff into Duncan Street, we headed back to Congress Place and had their own flag raising at Square Revolution and so on. Then they were forced to do what they are doing today. But they don't like Republic celebration still, notwithstanding all that I'm telling you. Barnum had moved the holiday from 26th of May 1966, which beyond being Independence Day had no relevance in this country to any event, to Republic Day. So it was a one for one. Remove the holiday from celebrating independence to celebrating Republic, which is a higher form of freedom. When they came in 1992, because they felt that it is Barnum and the PNC that were associated with Bonham PNC and black man is to be said in the same sentence, in the same paragraph and everything else. They wanted now to de-emphasize republic and put it now to independence, where Cherry Jagger had struggled with others for the fight for Guyana's freedom. But again, they met with serious resistance from height. So what they did, they then made Independence Day also a holiday. But since they had a fight on their hands to try to get rid of the Republic Day, they tried then to get rid of CARICOM Day, saying that only us and somebody else who do CARICOM. But then again, they had another fight. And so ultimately they decided to create additional holidays. So we ended up having 2 more holidays: Independence Day and Indian Arrival Day, or what they call Arrival Day. But they can continue in the foolishness into believing that Republic and Mashramani got something to do with Bornum Day. I tell you, education doesn't mean learning at all. Doesn't mean. And where you have a disunited people, sloganeering such as One Guyana would never cut it. Would never cut it. So this big pageantry that we had at National Park post 1992, again, National Park was synonymous with PNC and Bornum. So we ain't going there. We going Parliament Building. Of course, that has a bit more history too, that they probably went to National Park 1992, the last, PNC and people of African descent in particular didn't take it kindly and so on, and so Bornum Jagan wasn't necessarily a loved person at the time. So they decided to opt for safety rather than numbers and go bar off the whole place around Parliament Building there and hold a short, simple ceremony where lots of people can attend and so on. And it continues to this day. These people who claim they get 36 seats because they get 55% of the votes and so on, afraid to go openly, where people can be part of the ceremony and so on. They're going locked up in Parliament buildings. Few people, and the ones who turn up, can be controlled behind barriers and so on, rather than be open, like in the National Park or Durban Park, where on the Granger, this ceremonies used to be held. And I don't know who is Ali's speechwriter. A certain individual's name has been mentioned. Because sometimes when somebody gives you a speech to read, you have to be convinced that it has in there stuff that you feel not only comfortable with, but in your heart, it represents your views, your understanding of where we want this country to go and so on. But that speech, I had the opportunity of going through, not listening, but going through. And I said to myself, but wait a minute. Some of these phrases and so on sung Bornum-esque, as if they were lifted from previous speeches of Bornum or conversations of Bornum, discussions of Bornum, and put there, ostensibly believing that people wouldn't recognize it. I would have loved to put that speech in an AI or a chatbot to see what will come up. But you see, like I said, you have to believe in some of the things. You have to believe in reading a speech. You have to believe in what you are saying. And spouting, continue to spout one Guyana when that seems to be going nowhere. Continue to spout unity when there's a high degree of exclusion. Look, just like how you can't achieve a majority by dividing a minority, similarly, you will never achieve unity through exclusion. And in this society, a significant number of people is excluded from the mainstream of development. They're deemed as an afterthought. They're deemed not integral to the development process. And as one chatri said in the recent budget debates, I looking after we people. Y'all didn't vote for we. And it didn't create a furor. Dr. Hines mentioned it several times. It didn't create a furor in the House. It didn't even get a headline in the newspapers the next day. But when Valda Lawrence said something similar, they had the hangman's noose out in public, ready to hang her. Press, media, private sector, everybody. But nary a word. And you want to achieve unity through exclusion. Y'all didn't vote for we. I got to look after them who vote for us. And you see, that is why I've got to drown them a spit sometimes. Because when the coalition government took a broad view of development, as it should, because that is what development is about. The people, not some people. When we took a broad view of development and govern in that manner, today, our supporters, many of them, chastising us, cussing us out, pointing to the PPP looking after their people, while we then look after our people. So we have created, or trying to create in Guyana, us versus them. Us versus them, with its wider implications and connotations. We could have allowed the sugar industry to die and avoid all the heartaches we get today after we poured in that 5 years over $70 billion to save the industry. We could allow it to die. But that is not development. But today they use that to say how we didn't like East Indians, and that is why we shut down 4 estates. The same people who were shutting down estates before the coalition even dreamed to think that they will ever get into power. But it is up to us and our supporters whether they feel that today is me and tomorrow is you kind of the approach to development will keep the society going, or will watch it die. notwithstanding all the resources that we have. So you got a speech that ostensibly parroting some of the stuff, as I said, it's sung, some parts sung Bornholm-esque. A speech that seems to say the right things about unity and so on. But at the same time, a speech which at the very beginning could not even recognize the presence of the leader of the opposition. Imagine you want to teach people about civics and pride. Civics and pride. And you, in the order of things, cannot even recognize the leader of the opposition. Don't matter how much you don't like it. I see in all kind of places, you got far right, far left, far this and far that. And once they are in attendance, they recognize. Recognizing them don't mean that you like them. Don't mean you accept them and so on. But recognition as part of the whole ethos. Imagine you couldn't even do that. And you telling people that you must be imbued with a sense of pride. When you are going to teach them civics, you're going to tell them that you have a government but you have no opposition? Or you're going to circumvent opposition by not saying who's the opposition leader? We don't like it too. But what's the problem? You got an opposition leader, you got to accept it. Me know what kind of civics you're going to be teaching. And what kind of civics, by the way, will you be teaching? When on Mashramani Day, floats belonging to ministries or regions, which is the government, and in one particular case, I saw a guy who was leading one of the parade, wielding a flag, and have this flag dragging all the time on the road. And nobody will come to him, not even the police, not even Mark Phillips, who I saw walking around the place. I don't know who, and you know PNC, I ain't gonna say nothing. Picture is still 1,000 words. I hope y'all know that. Enter Benibo, make Washiba take notice. I hope y'all know that. All right. But continuing, no one will tell this clown that you can't allow the national flag, which is a national symbol, to be dragging on the ground. Who is teaching this civics? And so long we're hearing about civics being part of the curriculum. When will it be part of the curriculum? When? When? The education minister ran out yesterday or this morning. Yesterday. Run quick. Oh, the 100 million US that Exxon is making available will be transformational. Oh my goodness. Yeah, give up on the word. No? Give up on it, man. Give up. Transformational. I have seen not a single transformational thing in this country for the past 6 years. Notwithstanding the monies that we got. Not one. Beyond that word now becoming everybody's lexicon go-to word. Transformational. Where's the transformation in this country? And we tend to feel, and we know, that transformation means moving from lower to higher. That's the transformation we're talking about. Not transformation that moves from higher to lower, which is transformation too, but it's called negative change. But when we're talking positive change. And you know what is really, really thing about these people? Long before STEM became a big story in this country, you had Karen Abrams and her STEM Guyana. And she has done so much wonderful work, so much good work, that she had been given an AA. She had been awarded an AA, Golden Arrow of Achievement, for her work in the STEM and other areas. But in all of this, Karen Abrams' STEM Guyana and her work that she has done has not even got a beyond the comments carried by Sabbath News about her. And I tell them they better bring in Karen Abrams into this whole thing, because some of the comments that she gave are so incisive that the government should take notice. They're so incisive that the government should take notice. How are you going to teach STEM to a largely illiterate school population? How are you going to teach STEM to a population that is not numerate, both at CXC and common entrance? The lowest passes of any subject is in mathematics. How are you going to teach STEM to such students? And she's absolutely right. Indeed, you can focus on STEM, but to focus on STEM, you have to have the base. And right now, we don't have the base. And right now, we're not doing enough work to build that base up. So, and the president again missed an opportunity to announce national awards. But meanwhile, Jagdeo gone to some conference, some AI conference in India. Was that the real intent of that, going to India, or was there something else? You know, as we talk about civics and pride and so on, I saw a photograph last week of the minister of India meeting Jagdeo on his arrival or something like that for this conference. And in this picture, Jagdeo had on a hard pants that saw better days, and a short, not dissimilar to the ones that Azruddin Mohammed likes to wear. They're not round bottom, they're not square bottom, they're round bottom, out of the pants. I don't know about the quality, because Mr. Asmo seemed to like top of the brands. But there he was in this picture, meeting a minister of the Indian government, dressed appropriately to meet a high-ranking figure, a vice president of a country, not realizing the man is in a hard pants and a short outy pants that is not square bottom and so on. That is that pride that we teaching our people? Is that civics that we teaching our people? Huh? Is that pride? I said to myself, oh Lord, man, oh, is this a picture that we will be able to show our little children of how you should dress when you're meeting dignitaries? And there he was also, now they said, giving this inaugural address, or the main speaker or guest speaker or whatever. Properly dressed, probably missing a Yves Saint Laurent or something suit or so on, but properly dressed. But I would suggest that we pay careful attention to Jagdeo, because he didn't look too well in that photograph. He didn't look too well. He said he's okay, but he didn't look too well. And you know what it is with these leaders and their illness? First of all, under the President Benefits Bill, the state must pay the medical bills of former presidents. Must pay. But in return, what do we get for that? Us not knowing what is wrong with you? You know, the only president in recent history who was made public his illness is President Granger. So the state could be paying for a whole set of former presidents, and we don't know what's wrong with them. You can't want public finance or the treasury to finance your medical bills and not let us know what's going on. The mighty Trump and all of them from United States, every year they got to get an annual, and it's known. It is known what they are suffering from, what they find, and all these kinds of story. It's not for gory details, but we must know. We must know. What is there to hide? I got diabetes, I tell everybody, as part of the whole awareness of people, you know, especially of African descent who are prone to diabetes and so on. I ain't a president, I ain't a vice president. I was a lowly, well, not lowly, don't let me put you that way. I was just a minister. They don't pay for my medical bills. So what is wrong with them? Who getting money from the state? Not telling us what is wrong with them. Look, if you want to tell what's wrong with them, tell us, give us, these accounts have to be altered by the Auditor General. Tell us how much money the state paid for each one of these former presidents for medical bills for the year. Tell us that. We may get an idea of what might be wrong if you don't want to tell us. But I think in the thing of disclosure, especially if it's done by the mighty United States, why we can't disclose what's wrong with you? But anyhow, so he's there in India, and then he gets an award among 18 people who have been identified for this award, some Sustainable Development Award. So the top two people in the PPP, Ali and Jagdio, going all over the place and getting awards, however, but they don't see it. They don't see anything wrong with being home here. And for the last 6 years, not a single Guyanese can be recognized for their hard work and so on. We must be on somebody's plantation in this country. We must be. And by the way, those 18 people who have been identified for awards, the pictures were there. And do you know what? Not a single one is a black person. Not a single one is an African. Not a single one. So what happened there? What's the message? That Africans ain't know anything but sustainable development? Yeah? Africans ain't know anything but sustainable development? And as they like to think that sustainable development and so on is something to do with the PPP. It had nothing to do with PPP. That thing was in our constitution. And more important, Desmond Height, when it wasn't in vogue, Desmond Height, I believe at the Commonwealth meeting in Malaysia, I may be wrong, but I believe it was the Commonwealth meeting in Malaysia, announced the setting aside of 1 million acres for biodiversity research and all this kind of thing. Hence, Iroquamo today. Iroquamo, that is Desmond Heights. That's a creature of Desmond Height. Them running around making money for sustainable development, getting this award, champion of dirt, and all kind of story. But it was Desmond Height, when sustainable development wasn't a big thing in the world, who was donating 1 million acres of our land, devoting it to biodiversity research and so on. Man living with the environment. So that was it. And of course, don't talk about the floats. I don't know. I don't know. Let us call them floaters, not floats. Floaters. Because that is what they were. No creativity or low creativity. Oh, how I long for people like John Fernandez David Lanny, Neil Chan, Winfield James, the Alrondo, Gottfried Chin, Claire Gorin, Bernard Ramsey. Such names in the annals of creativity and design. Y'all remember magnificent floats like Chariots of Fire? You remember that one? Oh my goodness, I remember that one. Oh Jesus, that was one of the finest floats ever produced in this country. Chariots of Fire. Legend of Kaichor. Legend of Kaichor. Revelation. All these were major floats. Major floats. I believe that were produced by John Fernandez, I think it was. Major floats. Oh, those were fantastic floats. And who can forget? Who can forget Guy Mine versus Guy Stack versus the public service versus the discipline services? Massive floats. 1,000 strong, 2,000 strong. And then you had floats from the ministries, of course, massive competition. And what you had also was the private sector participation. Now, their participation have never been great. Their participation has never been great, but they were there. You had Banks DIH, you had DDL at one time, right? You had GT&T, yes, GT&T, and so on. So, but they were there. Now, for whatever reason, you got banks declaring massive profits, DDL declaring massive profits. You have the commercial banks declaring massive profits. You have a number of other groups, Massey Group, and Anson McCall, right? They used to have a float also recently. Anson McCall, all these places are declaring massive profits. Yet, the floats are dominated by government. The floats are dominated by government. Why? Why? The private sector stands to benefit the greatest on Mashramani Day and eventually up to Mashramani. Yet their participation in Mashramani activities is limited. And so too are races other than Africans, African Guyanese. Now, we don't have to beg people. I go to Trinidad, I went to Trinidad Carnival many times and saw how on that Monday and Tuesday and the fetes saw an intermingling of races, participation, not standby, participation. And this is notwithstanding Satmaraj and all of them who used to inject into these conversations a lot of racial bile. You still had Indians and blacks and Chinese and everybody mixing and thing on Pan Friday and and all the different pan yards and so on. You'll find, but not in Guyana. Not in Guyana. The bulk of the active participation are Guyanese of African descent, reinforcing that it's a black people thing. And of course, the leadership of the PPP don't help in that cause. They want to be out there walking among the onlookers, trying to win friends and so on, but never being part of the encouragement of the celebration. Not even a chutney bun or an Indian bun or so on. So they have divided it up between Mashramani, a black people thing, and Diwali, an Indian people thing. So you got Diwali with the Indian floats and whatever else it is, and I have black people try there with I have Mashramani and so on. But Diwali is a religious festival. Mashramani is a national festival. So the two of them can't compare. But that is what in Guyana. That is what we have done. And spare a thought for a $1.558 trillion budget that seems not to respect soft tissues like the arts, culture and the arts. You're telling me that we don't have the creativity backed by the financing to create magnificent floats like chariots of fire and so on anymore? Instead of these scanty 2-bit things, that has no relevance. I didn't really want to talk about the police float, because floats is not only about depicting or trying to depict progress in a society and all this kind of thing. It also has symbolism. And when you see a strong black man, strong Guyanese of African descent, pulling a float with mannequins that look white, Indian, and whatever else, the symbolism is of massa return. Massa return. And this is a police float. This is a police float. This is a police float. When I saw it, I said to myself, to what depths can we plumb further? To what depths? And look where we have come. That we call it transformational. Look where we have come. What will happen to the likes of Claire Gorin, David Lanny, Bernard Ramsey, John Fernandez, Neil Chan, and all these people looking on at this monstrosity, this massacre of creativity? What would they be saying when we had nothing? When we had nothing, we produced plenty. When we had nothing, when we were on the other side of oil, when the oil prices hit, forcing strictures, we had creativity. We had some of the finest floats ever. Now we have plenty. We have lots. And we have the reverse. It's an inverse relationship in Guyana between creativity and money. When we have little money, we have the best of creativity and design. We got trillions of dollars. And we got this poo-poo, pia rubbish. No creativity, no design, no awareness. But you plumb in depths that we didn't even think exists. Something has to give. If we really want Mashramani to become a national event, we first have to get rid of the narrative. And since we got to deal with this government for another 4.5 years or thereabout, it is for them to set the pace. It is for them to set the pace. We have to get rid of the narrative about Burnham this and Burnham that. You got a lot of money to burn and you worrying about Burnham this and Burnham board. All of it is fake and false. The people don't need that kind of narrative to get their people to go and vote for them. They don't need that narrative. And they know that too. They know that. We have to have a prominent Mashramani committee, not one that is set up a couple of weeks before the event. Mashramani must be a prominent thing on our calendar. You're building hotels all over the place. And those hotels can't depend on annual oil and gas conference to fill rooms. You have to be able to put on our calendar these different activities and market them as major events. So at those hotels, more hotels building. You got a massive one on your embankment. Then in a couple years' time, you got the Hilton in Kaifesta Avenue. More hotels building and extending and so on. I don't know what they hear. But you have to have a calendar that will fill. We are not a tourist attraction place like Barbados, Jamaica, and so on. We are natural resources, business oriented. So that tourism calendar has to develop and thrive throughout the year for these hotels to fill their rooms. And Mashramani, a whole event. Years ago, we used to have steel pan. You got a little bit of it, you know, but it's not. You had Chronicle Atlantic Symphony, my go-to. Chronicle Atlantic Symphony that used to be there in Camerville. Campton with Rudy Bishop. Then you had Roy Geddes, Panman Extraordinaire. And then you had GDF Frontline. You had all these big bands. Pan, sweet. I think Chronicle Atlantic Symphony was so good. I think they got invited to Moscow to play in their parliament there. I think they went to Nigeria at one of the expos and so on, Canada and so on. They were magnificent. And so too was the Roy Geddes. I think Roy Geddes was Silvertones or something like that. We are missing these things. We have to invest money in the arts and in culture. We have to invest money in arts and culture. And we have to make this whole Mashramani a 2-month affair, coming from January, from the time you finish New Year's Day, right up to the end of February. You have to have activities that will pull people out of that snow. Look at that snow that's going on. You know, I met a couple of people. You know what they told me? You know the reason why I'm here? They said I can't stand the snow. They said I'm tired of digging out snow and all kind of stuff. They're gone. So some of them here, they brought the children and so on for Mashramani. Right? They brought their children here for Mashramani. And I met a couple of them, couple of different other people who said the reason why they're here is because of the dreaded snow that they had this year in Ting. You have to capitalize on those things. You have to market it. Because I'm telling you, a lot of rooms going to be empty. And they're going to regret billing. We can put this permanently on our calendar as a major event. Major. And we don't have to let our Diaspora people wait until they have too much snow to come. We can package it. And then price them hotel calling, gonna be backing them. Back them. Like they want to make back the money overnight. Tell them Guyanese $200, you reduce your rate to $200 for Guyanese. The Guyanese gonna find 200 US a night plus VAT. Where they gonna find that from? You're talking about 50 something $1,000 a night. Guyanese. Man, look. But anyway, Kiraki, I think the sun is gone, the rain has come. So I think it's a good time to take my leave. There is a topic I want to deal with, but I'm not going to start it because it's time. I'm going to deal with it next week. Stay tuned. It's a topic that should be dear to all of us, especially Guyanese of African descent. When I read about this matter, I shook my head. I said, no, 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 no. But we will talk about it next week. God spare. And until then, stay well. I heard snow is coming again this weekend for those in the New York and New Jersey and that area. Keep digging yourself out and keep hope alive. Bye.
Manners and respect to Mr. Winston Jordan. You is a great man to the Guyanese citizen. As a minister to the South America land called Guyana. So much negative, so much propaganda. The PPP are trying to tell upon you, but keep speaking the truth. The truth is always there forever. The best finance minister I ever seen in Guyana. Oh yeah, Lord, please guide and protect him each and every day. He is full of knowledge and experience and things that going on in this country. Jordan is a cool and humble man. He educate and dedicate to the society. Over 30 years he give to we in this ministry. Yeah, yeah. Jordan is for all. Lord, no, you will always stand tall. Tall, yeah. Oh yeah. I am a Guyanese citizen. I never meet you and I never talk to you, but for you good works you have done for this country. I'm singing this song to you, Mr. Winston Jordan. We as Guyanese citizens saying we love you, yeah, we love you. Lord, let no weapon that come against him shall prosper. Lord, you is the God from heaven. You